All right, so you have now learned how to make loops. You now have learned how to layer a lot of different parts, create your drum sounds. And the next part, I think, is when you're arranging, it's to be organized. It's very easy that when you first start arranging, you might have the drum part, let me move this here, like all the way in the top and have it like every which way. And it's very hard to keep track of what parts are what. So what I'm suggesting is that you arrange your music so that different sections are grouped together. So right now, if you look over here, I have the guitars together. I have the keyboard, the synth together, the bass, and the drums together, and the shakers together. And you'll also notice that I color coded it. So all the guitars, for example, are yellow. This top line is actually the melody, so I could even make it stick out even more. Maybe I want to make it red. All right. And the advantage of doing that when you group them is, say I just want to hear the guitars, they're all next to each other and I can easily hear them. All right, so I could hear all the guitars together. I could fix their volumes if I want to do something special, like automation, like maybe throw one guitar to one side of the speakers. Everything's together. I could see how I'm arranging everything. You could see that I'm moving the guitars to different sides of the speakers, changing their volumes around using automation. It's very simple when everything is together. All right, I have the keyboard by itself. I have that blue. So we could just hear the keyboard. Now I have the keyboard also near the guitars because a lot of times the guitars and the keyboard do have like melodic stuff together. So even if I like play, like say play the guitar and the keyboard together, a lot of times their parts like coincide. Like one is maybe playing the backgrounds, the other one's playing the melody, but they're very like melodic. All right, next, what I have, if you go down here, I have the synth. So the synth kind of like creates the long notes, and I have it paired with the keyboard because it's kind of like a keyboard in that it has that background, like that pad feel. This synth here has a glossy sound, and then here I combine the synths. All right, so, but I have that all together, but if I wanted to hear it like with the keyboard, again, it's next to the keyboard. So I could hear how the synth and the keyboard work together in this song. Let me start right here. All right, so, and then sometimes what I notice in like songs, sometimes the synth actually is paired up with the bass guitar to make the bass sound a little fatter. So if you notice in this arrangement here, I actually have the bass guitar next to the synth. So if I wanted to hear how they work together, all right, that really fattens up the sound. Here's the synth without the bass guitar. Right? There's even with the bass guitar. Hold on. Yeah, even fatter. All right, so I have that all together. All right, next up, I have the drums together. So all my drum parts. Oops, I forgot to solo it. The drum parts, let's hear it. I have them labeled. Drum 1. I actually have it by verse. Drum fills, that's the intro. What is this here? I have a bass guitar in the wrong spot, see? So I could move this bass guitar up here. So now my bass guitars are together. All right, here we go. We have the drums. And let's hear how the drums sound together. Good, right? And you can hear that I have like two different tracks so I could control volumes. I have one that's just kind of mostly fills. So if you listen to this. But I wanted more like bass drum thumping while that was going on, so I added another drum track. So that's together, all right? So drums are together here. Now, there are other drum parts as well in this song, but I kind of separated them a little bit. This is the last, these are the drum parts at the very end. And what I did was I mixed up two sounds because I didn't like the sound by itself. Here's the first drum sound. I'm gonna solo that. It's fine, but I wanted something a little fatter. Here's the second drum sound. And what I did was I combined them. Just a little fatter, right? And again, I have them next to each other so that it's easy to do things. All right. The next part technically is part of the drum section, but I separated them. They're the shakers. They're the little high-pitched stuff. The shakers, the hi-hats. They just kind of put a little bit of like icing on the drum beat. Kind of like throw in a little bit more of that high-end stuff. All right. And then if I wanted to add the whole drum part together, right? Let me do that. Now we could hear them all together. Add them together. Right? And then again, I could just change the volume, right? If say I want more shaker or more bass drum, I could tweak it here and everything's together. I don't have the drums all the way in the top of the mix. And then last but not least, I have special effects. I put them in the bottom so that way I don't have to look for it. In the very beginning, I want this like crazy bass, not a specific pitch. I just want you to feel a thump when you're listening to this in big speakers. You might not hear it on a cell phone, but right, some little things here. I have a clock sound, and the clock sound actually I have it near the shaker sound because I'm having the clock and the shaker work together. Listen. Clock by itself with the shaker. All right. And then I also like, instead of doing crash cymbals, I felt like for this song, it made more sense to replace the crash cymbal with a sound like a blast. So it kind of does the same like function as a crash cymbal, but it just sounds a little bit different. Right. And then there's this one part in the song where there's like empty space, and I could have just left it empty space, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a little bit of tension and put this little sweep underneath that's kind of subtle. If you see, the volume is pretty low on that, and that's what makes the whole thing work together. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink this screen, and I want you to hear how all the parts work together. Here we go. Start from the very beginning of the piece. So just as a reminder, all right, just to review the lesson, organize this side over here in your workspace by instrument. And, you know, by instruments, I feel like instruments that have similar function. It helps you mix things. It helps you pan things, put stuff in different spots, helps you with volume. You could listen to a section at a time and see if that whole section works together. Another thing is to go on the side over here and on 3 dots, color code them. All right. The advantage of that is when you're this organized, everything's together, you're color coding, say you're collaborating with somebody else, you don't have to explain everything. I mean, a person could just walk in here and you might not know everything that's going on, but you could see what parts are kind of similar just by looking at the colors. So there's a lot of advantages to that. All right. Now, one thing I just want to add here is that as I was recording the video, I was getting a lot of lag. If you go under settings, If you are having a lot of lag because maybe your project is getting too big, you could change the sound quality. So instead of having high, medium, you could switch it to low. All right, so I have it switched to low. But what you could do if you want to listen to it in higher sound quality, you could go over here. Let me move over here. You could go over here where it says file and export, right? And you can export it as a WAV file. So if you export it as a WAV file, what happens is you could listen to it on like iTunes and the quality is even better. So, oh, this is saying getting mixed. So yeah, you could export it as a WAV file, bring it up on like iTunes or some other player, and you'll notice that the quality is even 50 times better than what you did. After you've done that, listen to your mix in different speakers. You might notice that it sounds really good with your headphones, but if you switch it to your laptop, it sounds horrible. Listen to it on your on your telephone. Listen to it on your cell phone. Listen to it on a TV speaker, and you'll get a lot of different information when you try that. And then you could go back here after listening to it, and again you could tweak the volume to what you think should work. A lot of times people put too much bass up front, so I suggest be careful about that as you're mixing, because that tends to be the error. Also, when you're mixing, be sure that you hear all the melodies at the same time. So like the melody over here, right? Be sure you could hear that. You'll notice that like I doubled the part. I added another guitar, just so that part comes out a little bit more. All right, Polaris, hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in our next lesson.